Mobility and movement differences. Warzone's movement. Call of Duty players are known for fast, agile movement. Warzone operators can sprint and tactical sprint, slide into cover, slide cancel, dive through windows, mount and peek around edges quickly, and bunny hop around corners. They even move faster with lighter weapons. This means in close quarters, a Warzone fighter might dance around a Battlefield player, making themselves very hard to hit. Warzone also allows a meat shield mechanic, using a grabbed enemy as cover. Their traversal of the map relies on parachutes for initial drop, and any high jump, zip lines on structures, and grappling hooks in some field upgrades. Essentially, quick repositioning and outmaneuvering is a Warzone staple. They also have prone diving and other maneuvers to throw off an opponent's aim. Battlefield movement. Battlefield has become more mobile over the years, but generally not as fast-paced as Warzone. Soldiers have a standard sprint, can vault over obstacles and breach through doors and windows similarly, and can swim. However, the gunplay in Battlefield often penalizes firing while moving too much. Players tend to take more controlled positions and use prone or crouch for accuracy. There's no slide cancel exploit in Battlefield. If you slide or dive, you'll have some recovery before shooting effectively. Battlefield players also rely on vehicles for macro mobility to cover large distances quickly. They can spawn in transports or use squad spawn beacons. On foot, they can't reposition across the map as rapidly as Warzone operators who might redeploy via parachute from a tall building or from a plane or helicopter. Though in the new Battlefield 6, they do have the parachute mechanic in-game, so they can parachute from multiple different places. They're just not as fast and not as maneuverable as Warzone. Fatigue and downtime. Warzone players are used to periods of intense action followed by downtime. They sprint and slide in short bursts. Battlefield players, especially in modes like Conquest and Breakthrough, experience more constant action at objective zones, but also long runs to objectives and continuous firefights once there. Warzone's culture of movement is very high actions per minute in close fights, whereas Battlefield is a mix of bursts of intensity and tactical pauses. Warzone players' twitch reflexes and movement can give them an edge in every 1v1 or even a 1v2 skirmish. But Battlefield does have stamina in sustained battles and managing multiple threat angles, though this will not have that much of an impact on the Warzone players. Impact on the battle. In an infantry-only battle, Warzone's superior movement mechanics mean a few operators could run circles around less mobile Battlefield soldiers. For instance, a Warzone player might bunny hop out of a doorway or drop shot to throw off a Battlefield opponent's aim, securing the kill. COD's aim assist is quite strong at close range, meaning Warzone players on controller can track targets through fast motions. Battlefield aim assist is typically more modest, so in tight urban fights or building-to-building combat, Warzone squads might win more shootouts via sheer movement skill and faster aim-down sight speeds on their guns. On a larger scale, Battlefield's movement advantages lie in development of macro movement. They can spawn in behind Warzone lines using squad spawns. They also don't need to constantly run back from a far spawn. A Battlefield player who dies can spawn 50 meters from where they died if a squad mate survived, whereas a Warzone player might be dropping from 500 meters up and floating down. This means Battlefield can maintain front lines better, while Warzone might feel on the back foot, having to rush back to the fight after each death. They definitely could parachute back into the fight, but it wouldn't be a very good idea for the Warzone players, just because most Warzone players, after they die, they usually spawn back in with a pistol. Now, sometimes in certain modes or whatever, they do spawn in with maybe an SMG or an assault rifle, but for the most part, pistols are the main thing that Warzone players respawn with. So they would have to parachute down somewhere else, loot some boxes, get some weapons first, and then go back into the main fight, while the Battlefield players always have all their weapons as soon as they respawn. Also consider environment interaction. Battlefield's destruction means cover is fleeting. Warzone players might be great at sliding into a room for cover, but in Battlefield, that room's wall can be blown open by a tank or rocket, suddenly exposing them. They might try to snake around a building only to realize half of it is rubble now. Battlefield players will use this to their advantage. They will create new sight lines by blasting holes in walls, something Warzone fighters won't anticipate from experience. Warzone does have an edge when it comes to mobility, but Some of that can be nullified if there's no cover to move between. Then the Warzone player will just have to rely on bunny hops, drop shotting, and slide canceling to get the shot, which they still do have an advantage. In some cases, a Warzone squad sprinting across the street might suddenly eat a tank shell or have an entire building they were heading for collapse from C4, leaving them in the open, though the effects of this on the Warzone players are minimal. In summary, Warzone's movement gives macro level combat superiority, especially in 1v1 engagements, even 1v2s, but Battlefield's ability to strategically reposition through spawns and alter the terrain allows them to stay in the fight a lot longer when dealing with Warzone movement. The less covered and more open the battlefield becomes, the more any raw movement speed advantage dwindles.